Seawolves, and welcome back to the show. Well, that was especially a funny 24 hours of racing, reading all of your comments. It seems that some people were definitely convinced that I was serious yesterday about Conrad's comments being very controversial. So we certainly had a lot of fun with that and reading all the comments on that. Good to see that the banter between the Aussies and the Kiwis is in optimal form, let's say. So that was a lot of fun. And well, actually, let's do the toast first, because right after we have actually a nice update by Conrad that we can jump right into to you know, stay in frame. So here we go. 3, 2, 1. Cheers, Wolves. Here we go.
G'day! So, bloody hell. Last couple of hours have been pretty fruity, actually. It was blowing 35 knots yesterday and last night, and because I wanted to keep my options open, I didn't want to sail VMG or downwind, so I was on more of a reach. So 35 knots, a little bit more sometimes. With 2 reefs and the J3 only. So I went down all the steps from the small Janica to the J2, and then when that got too fruity, from the J2 to the J3. Yeah, hit 30 knots cruising down a wave with some of the smaller sails that I have on board the boat, and got bounced around so brutally inside the boat that I almost got bounced out of bed. So when I was trying to sleep, I actually had to hang on to the handles even to keep myself in bed, and it actually hurt my butt when I was sitting in my captain's seat on the inside of the boat, because the boat bounced so hard that I got launched up out of it and then slammed back down into it. So, excuse me, I probably should have filmed that, but yeah, it wasn't very comfortable. And so now the evolution of the situation, well, sunset, it's beautiful. Long live the Southern Ocean, is that we're going into a bit of a light patch over the next couple of days, and so probably in 12 hours I'll drive over, start heading south again, and yeah, rendezvous, little meeting up with southern New Zealand for Christmas on the 25th, it looks like. So lighter conditions, it's going to be nice to have a little bit of a change, get the big sails up, get the big fruit out, and have a bit of a change of scenery. Looking forward to that.
Yeah, so Conrad obviously doing, except from his ass, doing pretty well. Alan Rora a little bit ahead of him, having a great time getting into the Pacific. Great party on board. And ahead of that, much more kind of near Point Nemo, we have Nicholas Lundven, who also gave us some nice insights into his thoughts.
We are almost in the middle of the South Pacific Ocean. 1 week to go to the Cape Horn, roughly. I was expecting a very long and smooth Pacific swell, but unfortunately we have a very short and sharp sea state with 25-30 knots downwind. So not very comfortable, quite hard to find the right way to handle the boat, because if you are going too fast, you break everything, and if you try to slow down, then you don't move forward. So very, very hard to find the right setup for the boat.
So everybody seems to be moving pretty fast. Now the reality, because some of those shots were of course shot a little bit earlier today. So actually, if we jump here towards where Ellen Rora is, together with Giancarlo Pedote, they are kind of in very low wind now. So actually for the last 4 hours they've been doing like 2.9, 0.8 knots even for Ellen. So they went right from the speed into no speed at all for the last like 8 hours. Although if we fast forward time a little bit, we can see that, yeah, basically 10 hours from now they should be, you know, getting at least some wind again and being able to do some speed, like 6, 7, maybe 8 knots again instead of the 2 or 3 that they have now. But they're basically the only ones. Pretty much the whole rest of the fleet, everybody is sailing pretty fast. One downside, I guess, for Group AP Seal and Fortinet, Romain Athenesio, and same for Initiatives Keur and Clarice Kramer, is that all of them are kind of doing something quite a little bit unusual in the Southern Ocean. They are sailing upwind into the Southern Ocean, and of course this is supposed to be a VMG, which means downwind sailing paradise, but we have so many low pressures actually kind of in the wake of the high pressures moving through, and low pressures, you know, they move in the opposite direction. So you can see here, for example, the example of Clarice Kramer and Initiatives Keur, Samantha Davis, that both of them are actually sailing, you know, kind of upwind, which is kind of unusual. And yeah, also for the design of the boats, it means that they're going to be a lot less speedy, because the really high speeds for the foilers especially can be achieved on the downwind. So it's like between 15 and let's say 24, 25 or something knots downwind. That's where they get those optimal speeds. But upwind, though they're definitely not slow, but with the rough sea states, it just is a big break on speed. So they've both been doing something like 10 knots. So definitely not, you know, the kind of situations that they're generally looking for here in the Southern Ocean. So that's kind of an interesting, you know, I don't think anybody expected that there would be that much upwind sailing in the Southern Ocean this time around. But just goes to show weather's always different than what people expect. And getting to that point, there is also kind of something interesting going on, which I want to talk today about, the battle between Charlie Dalin and Yoann Richomme. Because one question that you guys are posting a lot and asking a lot is, you know, do I think, which one of the two do I think, you know, might win or whatever? I don't know, but I do think it's interesting to kind of make the comparison now, since they're, you know, separated a bit from Sebastian, so they're kind of in a big head-to-head now towards Cape Horn. And it is kind of cool to talk a little bit about the big differences, let's say, between those two boats. Because even though their ships are quite similar, both of them are, you know, some of the newest models out there, but they've been optimized kind of for different things. So in that sense, there is a bit of a difference. And for those of you who don't know, it's kind of interesting to know, and it also kind of means something for this phase of the race, kind of until Cape Horn, especially for Yoann. Because in general, you could say that Yoann Richomme's boat is very much optimized for downwind sailing. So for the real VMG downwind sailing in the Southern Ocean, meaning, you know, kind of very deep downwind sailing, that's what his boat is very much optimized for. And we kind of saw that a few days back when he caught up to Charlie, because they kind of hit the ideal, you know, foiling weather for Paprakakea, for that particular design. And when he was having basically, you know, 15 to 20 knots, relatively, you know, flatter seas, but a very good wind angle. So wind, you know, not completely from the back, but just like slightly off the back. And then we saw he was basically doing speeds of like 24, 25 knots averages over like the 24 hours. While we saw Charlie and also Sebastian more or less in the same wind on more or less the same direction, doing something like 22, 21, speeds like that. And so in that particular kind of narrow band of circumstances, that's where kind of the sweet spot design-wise for Yoann's boat is, I guess. And so we saw that there's a kind of a big delta between what he can do then and what the other two men, and in this case Charlie Dalin, could do on that particular direction with that particular wind. Now, flip side of that, of course, if you choose to be good at one thing, then you're going to be less good at another thing. And so Charlie's boat is kind of tuned differently, you could say, in that it's like highly optimized for reaching. So that means for you know, kind of so the beam reach is sort of the canonical direction where the wind is coming like on a 90-degree angle from the side. And so, you know, you can think of like reaching in general as kind of all of the directions that are kind of close to that, right? So it's like a little bit downwind off of a beam reach. It's a little bit upwind off of a beam reach. And so that's kind of like optimized for reaching, right? And so that gives you a bit more of an upwind ability. The sweet spot is just a little bit in a different weather. It's a bit more varied because it gives you a little bit more options, you could say. So this is something that Charlie kind of opted for. He I guess, you know, made a different analysis of what is the most important superpower to have during the race. And so that's kind of, in general, what his boat is optimized for. Now, the way that shows is that the first and last part of the race are kind of the biggest mixed bag, right? You saw kind of coming from France, going through the Azores High, the Doldrums, St. Helena High, and you have all these kind of directional wind changes. Sometimes it's like, you know, deep reaching, sometimes kind of beam reach. There's like some upwind action. There's very much low wind action sometimes. And in essence, Charlie's boat is a lot more optimized for that than Yoann's. So Charlie's boat is definitely also like works very well on that whole downwind foiling thing. But Yoann's boat is just obviously a little bit better in that particular arena. But when it comes to kind of getting back up to Europe again, so that kind of big variation bag of like different circumstances they're going to get as they're going to go past Cape Horn and then back up again to Europe. On that particular part, you could say that Charlie's boat is quite significantly more optimized for that part of the race. So I would say that this remaining stretch of about a week, it's probably, you know, 5 days or something now, until they will get to Cape Horn, Charlie and Yoann, that particular stretch I think is going to be very make or break maybe for Yoann, because if he can somehow find a way to, you know, get a bit of lead or find some space where where he's going to be able to kind of use the superpower of his boat to the maximum and get that optimal, you know, downwind velocity out of that machine of him, and turn that into a bit of a lead, then I think he's going to have like a big fight on his hand holding on to that as they move their way back up to Europe. But if Charlie crosses the Cape Horn first, then I think it's going to be like it's still not impossible, right? Like there's lots of different weather scenarios that could still provide plenty of opportunity to Yoann. But if you look at it, let's say statistically, you know, what they're going to get on the way back up, you could say that maybe in that part of the race, besides the fact that Charlie's just an epic good sailor and it seems to be in optimal form, you could also say that Charlie's boat is a bit more optimized for all of what we're getting as far as weather and circumstances once we've passed Cape Horn. So the kind of the moment to shine, the moment to kind of capitalize on his particular design for Yoann, I think is now. Is like for this remaining stretch of the northern of the Southern Ocean, but towards Cape Horn. So, you know, if you didn't know that, that's I think kind of the best way to, you know, describe my thinking about like who's going to win or who's like in the best shape or whatever. I would say that despite the fact that Charlie seems to be still outpacing Richomme a little bit. I would say that, at least in the Southern Ocean, Yoann has the most chance as far as the material that he has, while Charlie is probably like fighting the hardest here to stay ahead of Yoann. But once they go through Cape Horn, I think that's going to kind of reverse a little bit, and then Charlie will be kind of on the material side a little bit at an advantage. So if Yoann hasn't passed him then, I think it's going to be very, very hard to, I'm sure he'll be able to keep up, because they are quite close in that regard, but overtaking him then he's going to need quite some luck or some really strategic move where maybe he goes into a different weather system that turns out better, or something like that. So then if we move back, so Sebastian still sailing nice, but yeah, like the disadvantage of not having the one foil is just becoming like very apparent, and yeah, you can see that he's just not able on his non-existing foil to keep up with the two other men, and so he's slowly starting to the distance is becoming so big now that he's starting to get into different weather. He's about 260 nautical miles behind the two other gents. So yeah, although he is going to get some more wind sooner, so he might catch up a little bit again soon, but yeah, I think that in general the disadvantage is just clear, right? Like that's just that's not going to go away. Then we have the group kind of led by Thomas Rouillant, who've all compacted quite a bit, and then we have kind of almost separate group now led by Yannick Besthaven, but with Boris very close on his heel now. So not only did he make it to 8th position, it looks a bit like he's actually on the hunt for Yannick Besthaven now, and Yannick seems a bit slower also over the last 24 hours. What is it, 15 knots, while Boris is doing 16.8. So not a major difference. Over the last 4 hours though, Boris is doing 20 and Yannick is doing 18, I think. Yeah, 18.7. So he is, at least for the last 4 hours, catching up to Yannick nicely. So that might get into some interesting territory there. Then we see Clarice Kramer and Samantha Davis. And yeah, Clarice seems to be very fast over the last 24 hours. So picking up a little bit of distance compared to Sam there next to her. And then of course Benjamin Dutroux. Like I said, very, very isolated, but sailing along very nicely. We have Damien Seguin also had a very nice sail and kind of managed to avoid the lighter patch that the rest of that group right behind him is kind of stuck in now. Now, I already talked about Isabel Joschke and Aurora, Jean Lecam, all of them, yeah, kind of stuck in that wind hole there, and they will be for the next like 13 hours or so before they get out of there again. So it's a bit of a mixed bag entry into the Pacific, I guess. Then we have Tanguy, who narrowly avoided the wind hole, so still sailing along nicely. And then we have kind of the whole stretch out group, starting with Sebastian Marcet and kind of ending with Arnaud Boiseries. Interesting that Arnaud Boiseries was at times like a little bit faster, in better positions than, for example, Conrad or Eric Bellon or some of the non-foilers that he's kind of sailing with. Violet Derange also quite ahead there. But every time he seems to sort of fall back, and now again finds himself a bit on the backside of that particular group. Yeah, and then you can see here kind of the rest, like very spread out. Jean Genjou, very isolated there, like way further to the south than the three sailors kind of to the north of him. Must be at least like, I don't know, maybe 600 miles to the north of him or something. So that's pretty, like the distance that Pip was away from shore, basically more north to him. But we have there Manuel Cosin, we have Fabrice Amadeo, and all the way in the back we have Dennis van Wijnberg. And yeah, that's the tactical update for what is going on today. So hope you enjoyed again. Make sure to like, subscribe, and see you in 24 hours. Ciao, ciao.